Which Generation 9 Pokemon are the best? How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing one of those tier list things that people seem to be doing. I figured I'd start a bit generic, so I'm going to do all the Gen 9 Pokemon ranked from S to D in terms of competitive viability. Obviously, there's some things that are just going to go straight to S tier that I've already been banned by Smogon because I play by Smogon. So this isn't really for VGC, this isn't for Battle Stadium singles, this is for Smogon 6v6. So if it's not your cup of tea, then I don't mind if you click away. If it is your cup of tea, go ahead and leave a like if you want to see more videos like this one. I want to do, like, you know, competitive viability for dragon types and stuff like that, because dragons are amazing, and other types as well. So if you want to see more videos like this, smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more as well. So I guess I'll just do these in like Pokedex order, since that's the order that they are on the screen. So Meowscarada, we're not going to do the pre-evolutions, we'll just do the evolutions, unless of course the pre-evolution has some sort of significant viability somehow in the tiers. So let's go with Meowscarada first. Meowscarada is a brilliant Pokemon. It gets Protean as an ability, gets Stab Knockoff, gets an incredible move in Flower Trick, which is always a critical hit and can never miss, which is crazy. It's a really good Pokemon. I would put this in S tier because it also has that crucial speed of being able to outspeed like Greninja and stuff, so it's got a really good speed tier. Overall, it's a really good Pokemon, I think. It's a very good Pokemon, yeah. Moving on to Skeledirge. Skeledirge is a interesting one. So Skeledirge isn't like, you know, wow, it's a Skeledirge. There's no way I'm going to beat this. Obviously, Meowscarada puts that offensive pressure on your team, but Skeledirge has kind of like this way of, it's an incredible wall. It can also pull off being a strong special attacker as well, with Throat Spray and the likes of that, with Torch Song boosting its special attack every time it attacks without fail. That's crazy. And with Terror as well, it's incredible. It's a great spin blocker. Unaware, defensive wall, stops all the Seltmons like Roaring Moon and stuff like that, especially with Terra Fairy it does. But I don't think it's up there in the S rank. I would say A rank for Skeledirge, and you know what, yeah, I think A rank for Skeledirge is fine. It's a really good Pokemon, I really like it. I would rank it just below Meowscarada though, really, so I think that's probably the best way to go. Quaquaval, I can never pronounce this one's name. Quaquaval. I know how it's pronounced because I've had people write it out to me, and I can't seem to pronunciate the words. It's really annoying. Anyway, Quaquaval, I would say, is a really good Pokemon. It's one of those Pokemon where once it gets going, it's hard to stop. You know, you get some Aqua Steps up, you get that Moxie boost from the KO. You're pretty much set up to sweep, but it's got its flaws. It's obviously weak to priority. Priority is obviously a big thing. Priority should be on everyone's team in some way, shape, or form. It's got a nice typing. Water Fighting is a nice typing. It gets good stab options in Aqua Step, Close Combat. Even gets Ice Spinner. It even gets Brave Bird. I think it gets Brave Bird. It gets Recovery with Roost. You know, Swords Dance. I think it gets Swords Dance, Bulk Up. It even gets Rapid Spin for utility. It's got a lot going for it, but I don't know whether I'd put it in A rank. It's definitely not S rank for me. I think I'd put it in B rank. And now, I think I'll put it in A rank for now, next to Skeledirge. Skeledirge goes above it because Skeledirge I feel like has more usability than Quaquaval. But yeah, so anyway, Oinkoloin, male and female. Now, I have actually seen people pull off some really interesting sets. I think it's like Stuffed Cheeks with like certain berries. They boost your defense and then you go for body press. I've seen people do that. It's like a berry that boosts your speed. And then obviously Stuffed Cheeks gets that defense boost as well. I've seen people do that and it looks pretty cool, but we're talking about overall viability. If we're talking about overall viability in the tier they're in, so for example, these three are OU, so I'd say they're them viabilities by OU standards, but like say something like the Dunsparce, which is like PU or NU, one of the two, I'd say that's probably, you know, it's an A tier in PU, it's definitely not an overall. So if we're going to do this overall, I'd have to put these two in the D tier. If I was going to put them in by their tiers that they're in. In fact, yeah, let's do it by the tiers. I'm changing my mind already. If we do it by the tier that they're in. So these guys are in the PU tier, I believe. They probably come to, you know, they're probably D tier in PU. What am I thinking? Dunsparce has two sprites here. I'm guessing one's for free segment, not that it matters because they both look identical. So, yeah, if we're doing this based on how good they are in their own tiers, I think that's going to make the tier list more interesting. So the Dunsparce is actually really cool. It's got a nice coil set, which can be really useful in its tier. Boom Burst set's popping off at the moment, and that does really well with Throat Spray and stuff like that. So I think I'd put the Dunsparce in the B tier for the tier that it's in. And if we're doing this on overall viability, once again, it goes to D. But I think we're going to do this video based on how viable they are in their own tier that they're in, that they've settled in. So we'll go with B tier for the Dunsparce. I think that's pretty good. Spidops, on the other hand, is obviously S tier. However, it's not. It's D tier. I don't even need to think about that one too much. I'm sorry, Ad. I'm sorry, but I would love to put it in S tier where it belongs, but just to annoy you, I'm putting in D tier. No, Spidops has got some usability. It's got like stuff like counter, sticky webs. It's got that really cool silk trap move, which lowers the target's speed if they try and attack you. It's like a protect type move, which is pretty cool. It's a good lead with a strong first impression, literally. With sticky webs and stuff, it's pretty much all you can do with it though, is like sticky webs lead. Not really a lot going for it, so I'll put it in the D tier where it belongs. Low Kicks, on the other hand, is an underrated gem. Even in OU, this thing can still do some real damage. That first impression with Tinted Lens is killer. Absolutely killer. However, it is outclassed by a lot of Pokemon, and it struggles to make a staple in the OU tier. But in its respective tier that it's in, I'd say it's A rank. I would say it's A rank in its respective tier, so it gets to go in the A rank section. Rabsca is very slow. It's quite bulky. Gets some good stuff with Calm Mind, Stored Power, Shenanigans. It gets the immortal move, Revival Blessing, which is a really good move. Really cool move, just like Pawmot does. But it's not that good, really, in its even in its respective tier. So I would have to put Rabsca. I've seen, you know what, compared to these three, I've seen Rabsca do way more work, thanks to Hayden. So I would say probably put it in C tier for its respective tier. Obviously, this is for their respective tiers, not the overall viability, because otherwise these would all be in D tier, including Low Kicks, who would be in C tier. No, we'd be in B tier, I think B tier. But yeah, so in their own respective tiers, right? Just try and remember that. I know some people are going to forget. So, Houndstone. Obviously in OU it was an S tier. That's because of its move's last respects paired with the ability Sand Rush. It was incredible. Really powerful Pokemon. If it's the last Pokemon on your team, you've got no chance of stopping it if the Sandstorm's still up. Very, very powerful Pokemon indeed. But when it comes to Ubers, it's actually not that bad either. Like, pair it with Tyranitar and Ubers, and it's actually not that bad. I mean, 300. I think it's 300 base power on last respects when it's the last Pokemon remaining. You know, Koraidon, Miraidon do not like that. They do not like that at all. And with Sand Rush, you're outspeeding them anyway, so it's like it's a good Pokemon. I would put Houndstone in the A tier in Ubers. So if we're doing this overall viability, it's S rank. If we're doing this based on the tier they're in, which in this case is Ubers, which isn't a tier primarily, it's a ban list. I would put it in A or B. I think A is probably more respectable. Get it, last respects. Espafra as well, I would put in the A tier because the sheer power from the Ubers tier, you know, we got your Chi-Yus, you got the Chien-Paos, you got your Koraidon, Miraidon, they just hit incredibly hard, and its defensive prowess can't pull through with its Calm mindset, really. But you got to remember that I'm not that experienced in Ubers. This is basically just what I've read online. So I've done a little bit of research into these Pokemon in the Ubers tier, you know, just for the sake of the video. So that's where I'm going with that one. Espafra, definitely A tier, I would say. Definitely not worth. I'd say A tier in Ubers, S tier in OU if it was still OU, but it's not. A tier in Ubers is, I think that's respectable. Farigiraf. Now, this thing's a pretty interesting Pokemon. It's very bulky, it's got a lot of HP, it can run a really nice dual screen set, it can do other things as well, Calm Mind, etc. Nasty Plot if you really want to. It's a really cool Pokemon, but in its respective tier, I would say it's in C tier. I think it's in C because it has its flaws. It's not very fast. It's not exactly the most defensive Pokemon in the world. It's, you know, it gets taken out by a lot of common moves. U-turn, it's weak to U-turn, it's weak to knockoff. And for a Pokemon that's like defensive as opposed to offensive because it's not very fast. So it's like to be weak to such common moves is a pretty big downside. But I mean, C tier is not bad. C tier is not bad. For anyone who thinks, oh, C tier, disrespectful, you don't know what you're talking about. Look, C tier, it goes S tier, which is amazingly, fantastically amazing. A tier, which is amazingly fantastic. B tier, which is amazing. C tier, which is fantastic. And then D tier, which is absolute crock of crap. That's how it goes. That's why these are all shades of yellow and orange and red, and then this one's just green. It's because it's crap. Absolute doo-doo. Anyway, sorry, again, I've put Spidops in that crap tier. Next up, we have Wugtrio. Wugtrio is an interesting one. I've actually created a PU team with this on, and it's not that good, but it's not that bad either. Its choice band set can be really, really deadly, with triple dive and everything breaking through substitutes, which are quite common in PU. Breaks through the substitutes, obviously, and like the likes of Ice Cube, for example, you can break its ice face and then you can hit it with 2 attacks, which do a lot of damage. It's fast, it's got a really good speed tier, and especially in the lower tiers in PU, for example, it's base 120, I believe. It's got the exact same stats as Dugtrio. It's just a different type with different moves. Now, unfortunately, they didn't give it access to Earthquake, which would have really helped. And they also didn't give it access to Wave Crash, which would have been amazing. If it had Wave Crash and Earthquake, I could see it rising a couple of tiers. But I'm going to have to, through my personal experience with it so far, and this is my first time using it, I'm going to put it in C tier because it's nice. It does hit pretty hard in the PU tier. It's just really frail, easily revenge killed, and there's a lot of choice scarfers in that tier, and they just kind of body it. I'm currently running a choice band set on my latest team. Pretty good. Pretty good. Not that great, but it's pretty good. So anyway, the next one up, Dondozo. I'm going to put that solidly in the A tier. And the reason I'm putting it in the A tier is because it is a very strong defensive tank of a Pokemon. It is so bulky on the defensive side. It's another unaware Pokemon in the OU tier. It is the definition of stall. It is a very good Pokemon. I don't like stall, but I can't turn around and say stall is not a legitimate tactic. I know on Wi-Fi with a 20-minute timer, we don't like stall at all. I hate stall. On Showdown, I don't like stall still, but you know, it's more of a viable option on Showdown. So since we're doing this based on Smogon tiers, we've got to kind of use Showdown as a base, because that's primarily where Smogon rules are, you know, mandated. So Dondozo in the A tier is pretty good. I would even put it on S. I could potentially put it on S tier. Hits incredibly hard with its Wave Crash. It's like a defensive Pokemon that actually hits really hard. No viable recovery other than Rest Sleep Talk though, which is kind of annoying. They could have gave it something like Slack Off or something along those lines, because it's like a fish. So it can, like, it's a big fat fish, so it needs to take a breather every now and then, so it can, like, you know, slack off. So I'm gonna put it in the A tier because it is a really good Pokemon. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. Yeah, so Veluza. Veluza in his respective tier is deadly. Fillet Away is a very good move. I am happy to put Veluza in the B tier or the A tier. I would say B tier because it is very susceptible to priority moves, and its typing obviously makes it weak to Sucker Punch, Shadow Sneak. It's weak to, well, Quick Attack. It's not weak to Quick Attack, but it's frail. So even a Quick Attack is going to take it out pretty much, especially after the defense. No, it doesn't get a defense drop, especially after the health cut from Fillet Away. I have seen people run like Choice Scarf with Sharpness, which works really well. It's just a real shame because you look at this Pokemon's design and you look at the way it moves in the overworld. It's so fast, but so slow. So slow at the same time. It's really, really, really frustrating how slow it is, to be honest with you. So I'll put it in the B tier because it's got really good setup options, and that Sharpness ability makes it hit like a truck, but its low speed is holding it back from becoming an A tier, so I'll put it right next to the Dunsparce in the B tier. Next up, we have Palafin, the hero form. Of course, we won't put the zero form on there, but Palafin is an amazing Pokemon. It goes straight into S rank, no questions asked. Obviously, it starts out a bit weak with its zero form. All it needs to do is flip turn out of there or just switch out of there. Comes back in its hero form like nothing happened, destroys everyone's teams. That Jet Punch priority move, which is like 60 base power, I believe, really good priority move to have on such a high attack. I believe its attack stat is 160, I want to say. It's got really good bulk. It's got access to flip turn, which gives it more utility. It gets close combat, it gets stuff like that. It is a ridiculously powerful Pokemon. Even in the Ubers tier, it's still decent. I would say it's definitely deserving of the S rank. Arboliver. In its respective tier, Arboliver is actually a decent Pokemon. It is a very defensive Pokemon. It can also be very offensive at the same time. It's got a really good special attack stat. It's got good coverage in Earth Power. It's got Dazzling Gleam. It can run Terra Fire. Well, obviously it can run Terra Blast like every other Pokemon out there. But, you know, it has that option. It's got a really cool ability in Seed Sower. Seed Sower, which does some grassy terrain, which further boosts its Grass-type moves power. And also gives it that extra recovery every turn. So it's a really cool Pokemon to have. And if you didn't know, Grassy Terrain also lowers the power of Earthquake, which puts, you know, it can be a bit of a downer. But the only thing that really holds it back is it's got really low speed tier, and it is not that bulky. It is bulky. It can be bulky given the right EV spread, but it's not that bulky. If you're running an offensive set, it goes down pretty easily. I know that there's situations where it can take a hit, but if we're talking like against the proper team, not really. But in its respective tier, I'd say C tier. I think it's definitely C tier in its respective tier. I think that's definitely a good way to go. Scovillain, on the other hand, is a grass fire type with chlorophyll, which is the first fire type to ever have chlorophyll as an ability. It's also the first grass fire type in existence. It's got really good special attack. It's got really good physical attack. They're actually on par. Speed stat is not too bad, to the point where chlorophyll does boost it to outspeed a lot of threats like Dragapult. I believe it outspeeds Dragapult with chlorophyll. It can hit incredibly hard. It's got great coverage. You've got, you know, the likes of Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Solar Beam, Solar Blade if you want to go that way. It also can obviously Terra into Terra Ground or Terra Water or something along those lines. Get a nice and powerful Terra Blast off. I think Terra Ground's the superior one. I could be wrong now. I think Scovillain deserves to go in the A tier for its respective tier. And even on some teams in OU, I see people still pull this thing off really well. It's a very powerful Pokemon. Obviously, it's got the Chlorophyll boost in the sun, but it also boosts its Fire-type moves in the sun as well. It gets access to Growth, which is a really good stat-boosting move in the sun especially. Yeah, I think Scovillain's A tier. I would say A tier. You know, if you disagree with any of these, by the way, just feel free to comment saying, hey, I disagree, you suck. Or something along those lines. Maybe don't be so mean about it. Anyway, Bellibolt, S tier. No, not really. But S tier for sure in its respective tier. I mean, it's a really cool Pokemon. It takes hits surprisingly well. Like, you look at its stats and you think, yeah, they're there. But in practice, it seems to take hits really well, which is very bizarre. It takes hits really well, and every time it takes a hit, it boosts its next electric-type moves. It gets a recovery move in Parabolic Charge, which obviously is an attacking move boosted by Charge, which is the Plasmorphosis, or whatever it's called, Plasmorphosis. Just from getting hit by an attack. And you can run Assault Vest, you can run Bulky Leftovers. It gets moves like Muddy Water, which is great coverage move for an electric type to have. It hits those ground types really well. It's a very good Pokemon. It's got utility and Volt Switch if you really want to. I would say it's A tier in its respective tier. I wouldn't go as far as S tier with it, but I would definitely say A tier. Revavroom. Revavroom's a tough one. So Revavroom's an interesting Pokemon. It's got good moves like Shift Gear, etc. It gets Parting Shot for that utility. It gets really good stabbing, Gunk Shot, and Iron Head, which is great coverage. It is the ultimate Fairy Killer. It's the ultimate Fairy Killer. It's the ultimate Dragon Killer. Well, not really Dragon Killer. It gets a really cool defensive ability in Filter, which halves the damage taken from super effective attacks, which is crazy good. It gets Toxic Spikes. Stuff like that. It's a really cool Pokemon. I would definitely put it in the B tier though, for its respective tier. Obviously, if this was overall viability, I'd put it in C tier, but B tier I think is a respectable tier for Revavroom to be in. It's tough to say. I think Bellibolt's probably B tier as well. Yeah, I think Bellibolt's probably B tier as well. I'll go with that. Earthworm is obviously an incredibly good Pokemon. Gets Shed Tail, which is amazing. It's really defensive. It's immune to ground type moves, which is great, considering it's obviously, you know, a steel type who's weak to ground normally. And it just recovers HP like Water Absorb does from ground type moves. And ground type moves are so spammable as well. It just has to switch in on a choice Pokemon locked into Earthquake, or even just a Garchomp, something along those lines. It can completely wall it, and then it can go for its Shed Tail and set up another Pokemon sweep. So I would put this in the A tier, 100 billion%. It also has multiple moves that it can use, like Spikes, Stealth Rocks, etc., etc. It's really physically defensive. Very good Pokemon. Really enjoy using it sometimes, even though I never use it. Mousehold is definitely good, but it gets completely shut down by Rocky Helmet, which is unfortunately a pretty common item on defensive Pokemon. Especially like Corviknight, all you have to do is switch your Corviknight in on a population bomb that's coming in, and it just goes down because it cannot scratch Corviknight, but it will die to the Rocky Helmet from hitting 10 times in a row physical contact. You could put Punching Glove on there if you really want to, or protective pads, which stop the recoil damage from like Rocky Helmet and Iron Barbs and stuff like that. But that's a very niche thing to do, and it takes away from the power you get from Life Orb, etc. So it's pretty. It's a good Pokemon. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy it. I think it's really cute. I really like the design. I think it's so cool. I would put it in its respective tier. I put it in the B tier because I think it was OU for a bit. It was very overhyped though. People kind of thought, oh, Population Bomb, it hits 10 times. It's so overpowered. It's broken us out. But and it gets Technician as well. But it's now not. It's now that people know what it does. There is ways to work around it. Definitely ways to work around it. There's a lot of Pokemon that stand in its way. Rocky Helmet just shuts it down completely, like I said before. Or Rough Skin, for example, shuts it down. So Garchomp literally shuts it down just by being alive. Let alone Garchomp with Rocky Helmet. Oh, Garchomp. But obviously it's not in the OU tier, so we don't need to look at it that way. I would say it's still a B tier, even in its respective tier. So Titan is a really, really cool Pokemon. Really cool. It's got massive HP stat, respectable attack, decent bulk. It's got actually decent speed for like when you look at it, you don't think it's going to be as fast as it is. Pair that with Snow, which is quite common with its teammate Abomasnow. Unfortunately, Abomasnow, I believe Abomasnow is NU and Sir Titan is NUBL. I believe. I could be wrong. Could be the other way around. It could be PU and PUBL. Without checking. I don't want to check though. It doesn't really matter. So anyway, so Titan got banned from the tier with Abomasnow. So you have to use Abomasnow in a higher tier in order to get the benefits of Slush Rush from Sir Titan. And the defensive boost from Hail as well. Oh my lord, so good. Such a good Pokemon Sir Titan is. I think in its respective tier, it's not as good anymore. Well, no, it is, because you can just bring Abomasnow up to its upper tier, can't you? So it's just a bit meh. But I'd say it's still B tier. I'd definitely say it's still B tier. I think B tier is a respectable tier to put it in. Yeah, I think that's good. That's good. Baxcalibur, Godzilla himself, or Sub-Zilla as Raymond likes to call it. Sub-Zero Godzilla, if you get it. Sub-Zilla, yeah, cool. Anyway, Baxcalibur is a really good Pokemon. Really good Pokemon. It obviously dropped down to UU for a little bit, and then it was UUBL because it was just too much for the UU tier. But now that Chien-Pao's gone, Baxcalibur is free to reign supreme. There's obviously other reasons that you'd use Baxcalibur in OU other than Chien-Pao being gone. But with that in mind, it's a really good Dragon Dancer. It gets a move which is basically Outrage with no recoil or confusion or anything like that. It just makes you take more damage on the turn that you used it, which is not a problem at all because 9 times out of 10, if you're using Glaive Rush, you're getting a KO. Unless it's a Steel type, in which case you wouldn't have used it in the first place. Right? So with that in mind, I would put Baxcalibur in the nice and powerful A tier. It's not S-rank material, I don't think, in my books, but it's definitely up there. Definitely up here like that. I put it ahead of these guys. Not that that really matters in this tier list that I'm doing, because I'm doing based on per tier as opposed to overall viability, but you know, it's whatever. So anyway, Tatsugiri's next. Tatsugiri's not that great. It drops a Draco. Draco hits hard. It gets Surf. It gets the likes of Dragon Pulse. It gets no Ice Beam, which sucks, but it's fine. It gets Rapid Spin for the utility. It gets Nasty Plot for the setup sweep. It's just unfortunately not that fast. And it does hold it back because it's not that fast, but it's also quite frail. And it falls into that Glass Cannon thing where it's Glass Cannon, but it's more emphasis on the glass part. Because even though it's a cannon, it can fire off really devastating hits. It just struggles to find opportunities to actually use them. So I would put it in the C tier. Cyclizar is a jack of all trades and deserves to go in the S tier. Here's why. It gets Knockoff. It gets Rapid Spin. It gets Shed Tail, which is an incredible move. An absolutely incredible move. Even in Ubers, Cyclizar is a really good Pokemon because it just sets up for everything. Because in Ubers, you've got powerhouses. You've got Chi-Yu, Chien-Pao, Miraidon. You've got Koraidon. You've got other Pokemon. Iron Bundle, for example. You've got a bunch of Pokemon in there. You know, Fluttermane. And all of them really, really, really appreciate a free substitute. They really do. It also gets regenerated to heal its health back up from switching out. So you can go for Shed Tail, and even though it cuts your health in half, as soon as you switch out from that Shed Tail, you're going to get some health back. And that means you can go for another Shed Tail later on down the line. It's incredibly fast. It's got a brilliant speed tier. It can hit hard with Draco Meteor if it really wants to. Being a dragon in a normal type as well makes it immune to Ghost, which is really great because it was one of the few Pokemon that can actually switch into Last Respect's Houndstone, which was a terror. It's a very good Pokemon. Definitely, I think, deserving the S rank tier. Pawmot is a interesting Pokemon. It's got a decent speed. It's UU, I believe. It's got decent speed, decent attack. It's got decent coverage in close combat, Double Shock, Thunder Punch, Ice Punch, Fire Punch. It gets the Revival Blessing move, which is really good. It gets Volt Absorb, it gets Natural Cure, it gets Iron Fist as well to boost its punching moves. It's a pretty cool Pokemon. I think it's definitely one of the best, competitively wise, Pikachu clones we've ever got. I think it's definitely one of the best Pikachu clones we've ever got, 100 billion%. It's also one of the first Pikachu clones to actually evolve, which is pretty awesome, other than Pikachu itself. I think it is actually since Pikachu line, Pikachu, and Raichu, it's the first 3-stage Pikachu clone we've ever got. You know, so that's pretty good. I think competitively wise in its tier, I think it's definitely UU. That ability to use Revival Blessing and also hit really hard, unlike Rabscat, and be quite fast in the tier, I think is very good. It's very good, and if you Terror Electric with Double Shock, it's ridiculous. Honestly, you should definitely try that tactic, because Double Shock basically is a really strong electric type move, but once you've used it, you become a non-electric type, and you can't use Double Shock again until you switch out and switch back in again, I believe. Terror Electric, on the other hand, bypasses that, so you can just keep spamming Double Shock for all eternity, and you'll never have to worry about it ever again. It's crazy good, but yeah, Pawmot definitely B tier for its respective tier. Kilowattrel is easily one of my favorites. I mean, design-wise, it's a bit lackluster, but it's really cool. I actually really enjoy it. I had it on my Scarlet and Violet team. I really enjoyed using it. I think in the rain especially, it's really good. I've seen on rain teams performing really well. I would definitely put it in the C tier, though, because even though it hits really hard and it's really fast, it dies to pretty much every priority move, and the whole electric flying is actually a really good typing defensively. I mean, look at Zapdos, for example. Zapdos is a really good defensive Pokemon, but Kilowattrel obviously fails in that department. It doesn't get Defog, which is unfortunate for a bird. I don't believe it gets Defog anyway. It gets Roost, which is cool. It gets the likes of Volt Switch and U-Turn. It gets Hurricane. It gets Weather Ball, which is a really cool move. Obviously, it gets Terra Blast. In the rain, it's a really good Pokemon, but unfortunately, in the tier that it resides in, the rain is not there with the effect of Drizzle, so you kind of have to use it in higher tiers if you really want to use it effectively. But where it resides, it's a decent Pokemon. It's fast special attacker. Put choice specs on it, Volt Switch around and stuff like that. It's pretty good. I would say it's either B or C. I think I'm going to put it in B. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and put it in B. I think that's a pretty good place to put it. Bombardier is definitely going in the C tier for me. It's an interesting Pokemon. It gets Stab Knockoff, it gets Brave Bird, it gets Sucker Punch, it gets Stab Stone Edge, which is really good. It's got one of them unique abilities, Rocky Payload, where it basically gets Stab on Rock type moves, kind of like how Steel Worker works with Delmise. Really interesting Pokemon to say the least. It's just got a bit of a bad speed tier. It's got a decent attack. Speed tier can obviously be fixed by the likes of Choice Scarf and Sticky Webs, but it kind of falls flat. I haven't really seen anyone really effectively pull it off. I've seen people try. I've seen people make it put in the work. Don't get me wrong. However, nothing that's like, wow, Bombardier is game-changing. Nothing along those lines. So I would definitely say it's C tier. I'd definitely say it's definitely below Kilowattrel. That's for sure. I think C tier is a good place to put Bombardier for the tier that it's in, its respective tier. So next up, Squawkabilly. Squawkabilly is... it falls flat on its face, but I'd say it's C tier still. It's in the PU tier at the moment. It hits really hard with its Guts set. It's not quite as fast, but its speed for the PU tier is actually not too bad. Hits really hard with Guts, Brave Bird, Facade, all that stuff. It also gets Hustle, which is an interesting ability. So if you want to gamble it, you can run like Choice Scarf with Hustle and have like a Choice Band and a Choice Scarf on at the same time, which is pretty cool. But your accuracy is lowered, so it's a gamble. It's a real gamble, because I think your accuracy goes down like from 100 to 80%. So you're gonna be missing 20% of the time, which is crazy. And I tried to use it once, and I had one game where it didn't miss a single move, and it put in the finest of work. And then my second game, it missed, and it missed first turn crucially, missed a U-turn of all things, and died. It was pretty bad, So Squawkabilly's got potential. I definitely wouldn't put it in the D tier because it hits really hard like a truck, and it's got a decent speed tier for the PU tier, but I wouldn't put it any higher than C, to be honest with you. Flamigo is a really cool Pokemon. Nice pink burb. I really like it. I'd definitely put it in the B tier. It gets scrappy, which is really cool because it hits ghost types. So, for example, if you're using in the OU tier, you can one-shot Goldengo with close combat, which is really funny. It gets Stab Brave Bird as well. Gives you U-turn for utility. It's a pretty fun Pokemon. I know I've seen it used in VGC really well with the I think it's Opportunist as an ability where it basically steals. Well, it doesn't steal. It copies stat boosts from your teammates or the opposing Pokemon if they're used on the same turn or something along those lines. I don't play VGC, so I don't really know. This isn't a VGC tier list though, so you know, get out. Flamigo is pretty fun, but I definitely wouldn't put it any higher than a B tier for its respective tier. I see it on every RU team. Is RU team, I believe. I pretty much see it on basically the tier that it's in. I always see it on the teams. It does really well. It's a very good Pokemon. Cloth is unfortunately going to go in the D tier because it's very niche. It gets Regenerator, which is a cool ability. It gets Stealth Rocks. I believe it gets Spikes as well. It doesn't get Shell Smash. I don't think it doesn't get Shell Smash, but it gets an ability which is kind of like Shell Smash, Anger Shell, which is very niche. It's hard to pull off. Not a lot of people do, and even when you do, you don't really get like immediate satisfaction. You're like, oh wow, now that it's set up, nothing can stop it. It's like, yeah, but a Bullet Punch or a Mark Punch can just stop it in its tracks like that. So, or an Aqua Jet, for example, you know, from like Trio, like we put earlier. Trio can definitely take on Cloth, no problem. So Cloth is decent, but it's just not that good, even in PU. Garganacci is S rank, and the reason being is because no matter what you do to prepare for it, it always has something to stop your preparations. Always. Doesn't matter what you do. You can have Covert Cloak Goldengo. Guess what? It's Terra Water with Earthquake. There's just nothing you can seem to do to get around Garganacci. It's a very good Pokemon though, really good. It gets Stealth Rock, Salt Cure, which is one of the most annoying but most effective moves in the game. It gets stuff like Body Press with Iron Defense and Curse, etc. like that. It gets Recover. Really bulky. Great ability in Purifying Salt, and it gives it a resistance to Ghost type moves, which are very spammable at the moment. Especially with the likes of Skeledirge. Like, I mean, look at every Pokemon on this tier list. Garganacci walls Dondozo. Doesn't wall Skullvillain. Skullvillain is an OU, so we're not going to look at that one. Houndstone, it could easily take a hit from Houndstone, even at max power, last respect, it can take. Low kicks, it just shrugs off. Baxcalibur, it just shrugs off. Quackful, depending on how many Moxies it gets and what terror your Garganacci is, you can definitely take it out. Skeledirge has no chance. It can't even Will-O-Wisp it because of the Purifying Salt, which is crazy. That Purifying Salt ability is really good. Same with Goldengo's ability, good as gold. Really good ability. But yeah, Garganacci is definitely S rank. Definitely one of the prime Pokemon right now, I would say. Glimmet, not Glimora. Glimmet is definitely in C tier, in the PU tier. I see it on every PU team, is an extremely good lead, just as Glimora is. I'm going to put Glimora in the A rank because it's a very good lead. You're basically guaranteed to get Toxic Debris, which is 2 layers of Toxic Spikes off if you have a Focus Sash. Same with Glimmet. It gets Stealth Rocks up. It gets Mortal Spin, which allows it to spin away hazards on your side of the field. Obviously, Goldengo is immune to that, but it's whatever. So I've put Glimmet on here because Glimmet has been making good strides in the PU tier right now. And Glimora is obviously a really good staple in the OU tier as well. Definitely won't put it S rank, but it's definitely up there. I'd say Glimmet is still only a C tier in PU because unlike Glimora, who can run like especially offensive if you really want to catch your opponents off guard, Glimmet can't really do that. Glimmet is very limited to just being a suicide hazard lead, and that's it. But it does it effectively, and it's really cool. Grafaiai has a niche. It's got the whole Mirror Herb swagger thing going on, which is pretty interesting. It gets Prankster, it gets Parting Shot, stuff like that. But I would still only put it in the C tier because it's just not that great. Even in its respective tier, it's good. No, it's good. We'll put it in B tier. Put it in B tier because it is good. I've seen it pull off. It's a difficult Pokemon to pull off sometimes. It gets good options with its offensive moves. It gets Parting Shot, like I said, U-turn, Prankster. Parting Shot's pretty cool. Always getting the jump on Pokemon, getting their special attack dropped, etc. like that. It's really cool. It's just not the best. And I would definitely put it in B tier for its respective tier. Dashbun is an interesting one. So it's a really physically defensive fairy type Pokemon. I'm going to put it in C tier for now. It's a really physically defensive fairy type Pokemon with an immunity to fire, but not just any immunity. If he gets hit by a fire move, its defenses boost by 2, which is really cool. So it can switch into fire type moves, and we've got a lot of fire type Pokemon. You know, you got Skeledirge, which Will-O-Wisp and Torch Song and away. Dashbun can just switch in no problem. It can go for a body press, not on the Skeledirge, obviously it's ghost type, but it gets body press, which is boosted, which is based on your defense and not your attack. Really cool move to have, and it gets play rough coverage as well to boot. Really cool Pokemon. I'm going to keep it in the C tier though, because it's just not very good, really. It gets Wish, which is really cool. But other than that, it's a cool Pokemon, but it's not really that great. It doesn't really, even in the tier that it's in, the low tiers, it's just not amazing. It's good. And a lot of the times when you face one, you find yourself being like, oh, I don't really have anything for this Dashbun. But that's because you don't really consider it, because it's just not that good. It's good. And no, it's cool. I really like the design as well. I think it's a really cool design Pokemon, but it's just not that good. Mabostiff, I'm going to put next to the other doggo in the C tier. We've got a lot of dog Pokemon this generation, didn't we? I think, well, how many did you get? 3? Something like that? Something like that, I think. Yeah, we got Houndstone, we got Dashbun, we got Mabostiff. Mabostiff's an interesting Pokemon. It gets Intimidate, which is one of the best abilities in the game. It gets nice Stab, Crunch. Doesn't get any sort of priority moves, like Sucker Punch would have been nice. It got really bad speed tier, to be honest with you. Decent attack and decent bulk. Not really decent bulk, but decent-ish bulk. And it gets the Stakeout ability, which is an interesting one. So if you force a switch, their switched in Pokemon is going to take like double the damage, which is crazy. So Mabostiff goes in the C tier because it just doesn't really live up to the hype, and the hype is non-existent really. I don't see anyone hyping up Mabostiff like it's some amazing Pokemon. Bramblegast, pretty cool Pokemon. I'm going to put it in the B tier. It's a really good Rapid Spinner. It gets Strength Sap, which is one of the best recovery moves in the game. It gets stuff like it gets Power Whip, it gets Shadow Sneak for priority. It's got a really interesting typing in Grass Ghost, which is basically like Decidueye. It's just, it's just not as good. It's immune to wind-based moves, so Heat Wave, Hurricane, Tailwind. Well, not Tailwind, but Tailwind does boost its power. It just isn't immune to it because it's not an offensive move. It's a really interesting Pokemon. Bramblegast is, and if it's hit by a wind move, it boosts its attack, which is crazy. So if you use Tailwind on it, it's just going to boost its attack and speed, and it's going to be really good. Hayden actually did a really good demonstration of this in one of his battles. You can definitely find it. Go to his channel and look for the Bramblegast in the thumbnail. It's definitely a battle to see. I would definitely recommend going and checking that out. Anyway, Goldengo, S rank, easily one of the best Pokemon in this game. Really good Pokemon. Completely and utterly the best hazard removal blocker ever. The only hazard removal move that actually works against it is Tidy Up, which is a Mousehold exclusive move, which I didn't mention earlier, but Mousehold gets Tidy Up, which is pretty cool. It's basically Dragon Dance, but it also clears hazards away, so it sounds really good on paper, but it's just not. It's too frail. It doesn't really get to pull it off that easily. You have to just kind of go for a population bomb. Anyway, this is Goldengo's turn. Goldengo's really cool. It gets Nasty Plug, it gets Recover, it can run Choice Scarf effectively, Choice Specs effectively, it gets a really spammable stab move in Make It Rain and Shadow Ball, it gets coverage in Focus Blast, Thunderbolt, etc. like that. It's a really good Pokemon, and it definitely deserves a place in the S rank. I really like it. I don't really like the design. It's a bit derpy, but at the same time, the design's kind of growing on me, because I really like cheese strings, and he looks like a cheese string guy, so, Yeah. Great Tusk is easily one of the best Pokemon in the game right now, next to Goldengo. It's on 54% of teams, which is a very, very high percentage of teams. If you didn't know Smogon tier, how tiers work. Great Tusk is the most used Pokemon right now. It is the most used Pokemon, and there is a good reason for that. It is bulky. It is offensive. It is decently fast. It's got great typing. It gets Stealth Rock. It gets Knockoff. It gets great coverage. It gets 2 amazing stabs in Close Combat and Headlock Rush, which complement each other just nice. You went for the Close Combat on the Goldengo switch? Well, guess what? My Great Tusk outspeeds your Goldengo and can go for a Headlong Rush the next turn and destroy it. And if they hold an Air Balloon, Knockoff. Destroy it. Great Tusk is a brilliant Pokemon. It even gets Rapid Spin, which some people use Rapid Spin on Great Tusk without even needing to get rid of hazards. They just use it for the speed boost because Rapid Spin got buffed to boost your speed. Great Tusk is an incredible Pokemon. It's such a good Pokemon. I cannot stress this enough. It's really good. You should definitely use it if you haven't already. I always use it. I've actually been using Donphan a lot just because of Sturdy plus Ice Shard. But that's me trying to use low tier Pokemon in higher tiers. Just ignore that. Donphan should never be used over Great Tusk, really. There's no reason to. Great Tusk is just that good. It's a bit lackluster on the special defensive side, but, you know, it makes up for that in a lot of more qualities. So, pretty awesome. Brute Bonnet is a very offensive grass dark type, to say the least. Pretty good Pokemon, I would say. Put it in the B tier. It gets Spore, which is cool. It gets Sucker Punch, which is a deadly priority move coming from a Stab Dark typing. It gets Seed Bomb. It gets the likes of Crunch. It gets Terra. Obviously, every Pokemon gets Terra. It gets Set Up in Growth. It gets a bunch of other stuff. It's a pretty offensive Pokemon. Not amazing. I would probably put it in C tier, actually. It's either C or B. One of the two. I'm going to say B. Just give it the benefit of the doubt and make that B tier nice and thick and juicy right now. Yeah, I think BT is probably for the best, to be honest with you. Sandy Shocks is B tier. The reason being is that it looks really good on paper. It looks like it's got a really good special attack and speed stat, but its speed stat kind of lets it down. Looks really cool with the typing, Electric and Ground. That's really interesting typing, gotta say. It's Stab Earth Power, Stab Thunderbolt, Stab Volt Switch. Terra Ice is usually used on it to hit the other ground types in the tier and the flying, or the ground flying types, etc. Really cool Pokemon. Really cool Pokemon. But the fact that it only gets Photosynthesis as well, which it kind of lets it down. If it got Magnet Pull as like a hidden ability, I think it would be used more than Magnezone for sure. But it doesn't, and that just kind of lets it down. But Sandy Shocks is still good though. It's really, it's still fast. It's not got the best speed tier in the world based on the current speed crept Pokemon. But it's pretty good Pokemon, and I definitely would recommend using it at some point if you haven't already. Screamtail, B tier. Now, Screamtail is incredibly bulky, really fast. It's got really good speed tier. It gets Dual Screens. It gets the ability to break screens with Psychic Fangs. It gets Dazzling Gleam. It's got really interesting typing with Fairy Psychic. So it's not weak to Dark type moves. I think it's just weak to Steel, Poison, and Ghost. I think there is only weaknesses, which is pretty cool. It gets support moves with Wish, Encore, etc. It's a pretty decent Pokemon, to say the least. I really enjoy using it on my lower tier teams. I think it works really well. So I would say B tier for Screamtail is definitely a must. Fluttermane is S tier. Even in Ubers, it is a powerhouse. You've got to remember that one of the prime Pokemon in Ubers right now is Miraidon, who bolsters a 135 special attack and a 135 speed. Guess what Fluttermane has as well? With a Ghost Fairy typing. That's right, it gets 135 special attack, 135 speed, and 135 special defense. Now, I know it gets shut down by physical moves really easily. Scizzor's Bullet Punch, for example, just plows right through it. I know that. It's a glass cannon on the physical side. But you've got to remember, special attacking Pokemon are the most common and the most effective Pokemon right now for various reasons. Joey Pokegame actually made a video about this, so go check him out. It's a very interesting video, to say the least. Definitely opens your eyes to the world of special attackers, let's just say that. Fluttermane is amazing. It's a really cool Pokemon. Even in VGC, really cool Pokemon. Really cool Pokemon. Really great coverage. Everything good. It's got everything going for it, and there's a reason it's Ubers. It's just really that good. Really that good. Sliverwing is in B tier, and the reason I say this is because in the tier that it's in, it hits incredibly hard. First Impression, Close Combat, Leech Life, U-Turn, Earthquake, Wild Charge if you really want to go down there, Flare Blitz if you really want to go down there. Really offensively powerful Pokemon. It's got a bit of a mediocre speed tier, which is crap, But put a choice band on there with first impression. Oh, yes. Great Tusk is pretty much the only Pokemon that wants to switch into that thing. Oh, and Goldengo as well. I see Sliverwing's B tier. It's a really cool Pokemon. In the tier that it's in, it's just not the most favorable Pokemon to use, if that makes sense. Like, you're better off using Low-Kicks than Sliverwing, right? Because Low-Kicks has that tinted lens, it gets the first impression, it gets a Sucker Punch for priority as well. It has a really good speed tier in that tier. So I think Low-Kicks is definitely better than Sliverwing, which is why it's in a tier above Sliverwing. Roaring Moon is definitely A tier. It's one of those amazing Pokemon which gets really good setup. It can do a lot of fancy tricks with Terra. We're talking Terra Fairy, Terra Flying with acrobatics and a booster energy. Ooh, I love that set. That's like my favorite set to use. Really cool Pokemon, really good speed tier. You know, it's on par with Iron Valiant, which is another really fast Paradox Pokemon, which we'll talk about soon. Really enjoy Roaring Moon. It's a really good Pokemon, to be honest with you. Iron Tread's not as good as Great Tusk, so it's not going up there in the S tiers. I'd say it's bottom of the barrel A tier. It's really cool. It's got a really cool typing. It's got Stealth Rocks. It's got Volt Switch, which is really nice. It's got decent stats. It's got really good speed tier for what it is. You know, it's faster than Great Tusk. It's got that on it. It's not as bulky as Great Tusk, and there's a lot of reasons you would never use it over Great Tusk. Great Tusk overshadows it to the point where it's got to go in the tier below. I can't really say much else about Iron Treads, to be honest with you. Iron Moth is an interesting one. It's also going in the A tier. This is a really cool Pokemon. It's got really good speed tier. It gets some boosting moves in agility. It gets Fiery Dance, which boosts its special attack. Well, not all the time, but it has a chance to. Cool coverage in Sludge Wave. It gets Energy Ball. It gets no recovery moves, unfortunately, but it's pretty frail on the special side, or is it the physical side? It's one of the two. It's one of its defenses are really frail. But once it gets set up, you know, you got booster energy to boost special attack, and then you go for an agility. Whew! This thing can ride for your team easily. It's a really cool Pokemon. Definitely would recommend using it if you haven't already. Definitely would recommend using it. Iron Hands, the Pokemon that doesn't die. Now, unfortunately, it's going to go into the B tier, and the reason I say that is because even though it doesn't die, and even though it's very deadly with its belly drums and strong physical attack, there's a reason it's UUBL. And that's because it's too good for UU, but not good enough for OU. I could be misinterpreting that, but there's a reason it's not used much in OU. It's because it just can't cut it. And unfortunately, with it being UUBL, it's technically, with quotation marks, OU tier. Because you can't use it in the tier below OU. It just kind of sits there in its little void on its own, the UUBL tier. It's a good Pokemon though. It is a good Pokemon. It's just not quite good enough to run with the big boys. Like I said though, you kind of use it and it just doesn't die. It just lives hits that it shouldn't live. It just lives them. And you know, Headlong Rush coming from Great Tusk, it's going to eat that up like it's nothing, and it shouldn't, but it does. The only problem is it just falls flat on its face sometimes. I've really tried my hardest with different sets to use it, and it just doesn't work. That just could be me, my skill as a trainer. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it anymore. Iron Jugulis is also in the C tier, and the reason behind it is it's faster than Hydreigon. It's not got as good a special attack as Hydreigon. It's dark and flying, which is an interesting typing shared only by Bombardier and Yveltal, I believe. No, and Honchkrow and Murkrow, and there's probably others as well. Anyway, he gets Stab Hurricane, he gets Stab Dark Pulse, he gets Fire Blast, he gets Flash Cannon with Terra Steel, he gets U-Turn for utility. It's a pretty cool Pokemon on paper, but the problem is when you're using it in practice, it just falls flat on its face, and it doesn't work nearly as well. It doesn't hit quite as hard as you need it to, isn't quite as fast as you need it to be in those situations, has no real setup. It gets Nasty Plot, I believe, but it just doesn't work. It's a really cool Pokemon though. I love its design. It's just its C tier for me. It's got to be C tier. Iron Thorns is definitely B tier. Now, Iron Thorns is one of the premier Dragon Dancers in UU right now. Really good Pokemon, especially with Loaded Dice Rock Blast. That's a really fun set to use. You can also run Pin Missile for Wo-Chien. The Wo-Chien's a pretty good Pokemon in the UU right now, and more on that later. Dragon Dance, Stone Edge, you know, get Thunder Punch for coverage, it gets Earthquake. It's basically everything you need Tyranitar to be, but Tyranitar is also in the same tier, and they both do different things. Tyranitar can run Choice Band, you know, stuff like that. Iron Thorn's pretty much limited to Choice Band, Assault Vest, Dragon Dance, stuff like that. It doesn't have a really cool ability that sets up Sandstorm like Tyranitar does, but it does have a really cool ability in the Quark Drive, which can obviously boost one of its stats with a booster energy or the electric terrain on the field. So it's a pretty interesting Pokemon. Definitely put it in A tier because once it sets up, it's pretty much GG. Terra Flying, so you're immune to ground type moves and resistant to fighting type moves. Pretty much GG right there. Oh, you're resistant to grass type moves as well. Oh. Pretty good. Terra Flying is also what you run on Iron Hands typically. That's what I've been running for the same reasons. It's that same type thing going on. But yeah, Iron Thorns, definitely put it in A tier. No. A tier for UU. A tier for UU. Iron Hands is below it. If Iron Hands was still in UU, it'd be up in the A tier as well. But it's not. So there it lies in the B tier. Iron Bundle. Pretty awesome Pokemon. I put it in the A tier right now. Remember, this is based on the tier that it is currently in, the Ubers tier. It's good, don't get me wrong, it's good. It's not amazing. It is amazing. It's amazing in the Ubers tier. It's just not S rank. Definitely not S rank. It's not up there with Fluttermane. It's not up there with Palafin, I would say. But it's really cool. It gets Flip Turn, which is great utility. It gets Freeze Dry, which is a really great Ice Stab. It gets the likes of Hydro Pump, etc, etc, etc. Really good typing offensively. Water and Ice is pretty good. It gets the Quark Drive ability, which boosts its stats in the electric terrain. Pretty awesome Pokemon. Definitely A tier. Definitely high A tier. Probably the highest A tier we've got. Not that it really matters with this particular tier list, but you know that's where we are with Iron Bundle anyway. Iron Valiant. Pretty awesome Pokemon, definitely deserving the S tier. Is one of the premier de facto Pokemon in the OU tier right now. Really fast, great coverage, great offensive typing. Quark Drive boosting its speed every time. It just outspeeds and KOs pretty much everything, except that's not a Clodsire. And even then, Clodsire goes down to Psyshock because it gets Psyshock. It's Thunderbolt. It gets Close Combat, Aura Sphere, Moonblast, Spirit Break. It's Knockoff as well. Knockoff is a great move. It gets Swords Dance for setting up. It gets Carmine, I believe. The only thing that it fails on is Special Defense, and even then it doesn't matter because you're outspeeding and KOing everything anyway. Iron Valiant's brilliant. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Tinglu is definitely the A tier. It just doesn't seem to die. You get it on the field, it doesn't die. The only thing that's stopping it from really rise up to S rank is because it has no real way of recovery outside of leftovers and rest. It's the premier status afflictor. It's a better status setter upper than Glimmora, I would say. I would definitely say Tinglu is better than Glimmora at setting up entry hazards, not status, entry hazards. Spikes, Stealth Rocks, you name it, he's got it. He's got Whirlwind phasing, he's got Ruination for breaking down walls, he's got Earthquake for strong stab, which is amazing. Gets other moves as well. Throat Chop, for example, I've been seeing quite common to hit Goldengos, etc. Pretty awesome Pokemon. Definitely one of the best new Pokemon we've got, outside of the obvious ones. So yeah, definitely there. Chien-Pao is ridiculously good. Would I put it in S tier? I will put it in S tier. It still hits incredibly hard even in Ubers. It outspeeds and KOs Miraidon and Koraidon with Ice Spinner easily. And they are the two main, box art legendary Ubers we've got right now. It's going to do really well. It's going to hit Groudon. It's going to hit Rayquaza. It's even with Pokemon Home coming out, it's going to be hitting really hard. It's going to be a great Pokemon. I can definitely see it being good in their OU tier even after Home comes out. In the Ubers tier, sorry. Really cool Pokemon. Definitely would recommend using it to anyone. It's a really cool Pokemon. Wo-Chien is definitely in B tier. Now, Wo-Chien is a interesting Pokemon in that it doesn't really stand out. There's nothing really amazing out of it other than the memes. The Wo-Chien live reaction memes. God, I love those top quality memes right there. It's an interesting Pokemon. It's got an interesting typing. Grass Dark is weak to one of the most common moves in the game, U-Turn, of course. But it can just Terra Fairy or something like that and just be resistant to it. So it's not that big of a deal, really. It's not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. So, yeah, Wo-Chien's up there. It gets Leech Seed, it gets Spikes, it gets Ruination, stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. You get Stab Knockoff, which is cool. Giga Drain, etc. It's an interesting Pokemon. It's Tablet of Ruin. Or is it Tablet of Ruin? I can't remember what it is. It's something of Ruin. Lowers the physical attack over the opposing Pokemon, so it's an interesting one, to say the least. It's great physical wall, great special wall. Pretty good Pokemon. I'd definitely put it in B tier. Chi-Yu is S tier, and the reason being is that there is nothing that really wants to switch into it, especially in the sun. Koraidon resists overheat, but does Koraidon want to take an overheat in the sun boost by choice specs on the switch in? Didn't think so. It doesn't. Nothing does. Nothing does. Unless they're immune to fire. Unless they're Dash Bun. Dash Bun doesn't care about Chi-Yu. But guess what? Everything else does, including me. Chi-Yu is a de facto Pokemon. It is one of the most oppressive Pokemon ever. It's decently good in Ubers. Really good in Ubers, actually. We'll see how that shifts when Pokemon Home comes out. I think Chien-Pao will still be good in Ubers. But I don't know whether Chi-Yu will hold up. I think it will, because it's really hard hitting. And, you know, Groudon's going to be there to set up Sun for it now, which would be ridiculous. Much better than Torkoal. Groudon's much better than Torkoal. Yeah, I think that's definitely something to look at, though. Dinkaton is the single most used Pokemon in UU right now, and I think it deserves to be put in the A tier. It's a really cool Pokemon. It's got a decent speed tier, considering it's carrying around a giant-ass hammer. It gets knockoff. It gets Gigaton Hammer, which is a base 160 power move. Not even considering stab yet. It can only use it once in a row, though, which is unfortunate. It gets Stealth Frogs, it gets Thunder Wave, it gets a lot of utility moves. Really good Pokemon. Great defensive typing in Steel and Fairy. I think it definitely goes in the A tier for UU. I think it definitely goes in the A tier. Not a lot more to say about Tinkaton, but, you know, it's definitely going in the A tier. Armarouge is a really interesting one. So I would put Armarouge personally in the B tier. It just rose to OU, which is an interesting one. It can benefit from the sun. It can benefit from the psychic terrain. Sun is quite common, obviously, with all of the Paradox Pokemon running around. It gets a really interesting move in Armor Cannon. It's got a decent bulk, and it's got really cool abilities in Flash Fire and Weak Armor. Weak Armor being the best one, because you can run, at the moment, the best set that I've seen is like Calm Mind with Weakness Policy and Weak Armor. You get hit by an attack, boost your speed, lower your defense, boost your special attack and special defense with Calm Mind. If it's a super effective hit, chances are you're going to live it because you're naturally bulky. Activate your weakness policy, and then you just sweep your stored power. And then you've got coverage for dark types that they are immune to stored power, or steel types, etc. with Armor Cannon. It's a really cool Pokemon. I'm going to put it in the A tier, not the B tier. I've just convinced myself just then. Ceruledge is also in the A tier. Ceruledge is basically the same thing. It sets up a Swords Dance, gets a weak armor boost, put a Focus Sash on it, Terra Bug, Terra Normal, all that stuff. It gets Bitter Blade, which is a really cool move that recovers your health. It's basically like a Drain Punch, but for fire types. Really cool Pokemon. Really cool Pokemon. It should have got the Sharpness ability, which is a real shame. It didn't, because Sharpness would have boosted Bitter Blade and made it really powerful. It's not the fastest Pokemon in the world, neither is Armarouge, but it does have that weak armor ability. Ceruledge is pretty much amazing Pokemon. Looks amazing as well. Oh my god, it looks delicious. I love it. It's so cool. Gotta love it. But A tier is where it sits for me. Toedscruel is an interesting one. So Toedscruel I'm gonna put in the B tier. It's good. It's good rapid spinner. It's got a bit of a crap typing and grass ground. It gets a really cool niche with its spore. So it's the only Pokemon that can actually spore a Goldengo and a Garganacci. It's the only Pokemon that can spore them because of its ability Mycelium Might or Mycelium Might, one of the two. I bet it's not. I bet it's a third option that I didn't even consider. Mycelium Might basically means you will always go last when using your status moves, but the status move will always succeed. Unless it's a type that can't be put to sleep, that can't be affected by spore moves, powder moves, like grass types. So you can't put grass types to sleep, but you can put Pokemon with gold, good as gold. It's basically like Mold Breaker with lower priority. It's pretty interesting ability. It also gets Stab Earth Power and Giga Drain. It gets Knockoff. It gets Rapid Spin, which is really cool. I think it's a really cool Pokemon. I just don't think it's like the de facto, the main Rapid Spinner you would use necessarily. So, yeah, that's where we are with that. Kingambit is up there in the A tier or the S tier. One of the two. It is easily one of the best Pokemon in OU right now. It can set up really well. That Supreme Overlord is an incredible ability, and its other ability, Defiant, is also equally incredible. Gets Stab Sucker Punch. It gets Kauto Cleave or Kauto Cleave. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Swords Dance setup. I've actually recently faced against the substitute variant, which was really cool. Really cool to see. Obviously, it can take advantage of Terra really well with Terra flying. Makes it completely wall. Great Tuskler doesn't have Ice Spinner, which is really cool. King Gambit is up there as one of the best Pokemon in OU right now. And there's no arguments there. Clodsire, A tier. Reason being, it's one of the only Pokemon that can stand up to Walking Wake right now, which is really, really cool. Walking Wake is a big threat, and it's not on this tier list for some reason, so we'll just kind of ignore Iron Leaves and Walking Wake for now. Definitely up there as one of the best especially defensive Pokemon in the game. It can stack hazards, it gets Toxic, one of the few Pokemon that gets Toxic now. It gets valuable recovery with Recover, great defensive typing, Ground and Poison. It also gets Unaware and Water Absorb. Water Absorb's great for the Walking Wakes, and Unaware is great for those setup sweepers that want to set up in your face. It is very frail on the physically defensive side, but every defensive Pokemon's going to have its weakness. Not every Pokemon can be Toxapex, you know. Annihilate is S tier. This Pokemon is redonkulous. Absolutely redonkulous. Rage Fist is a ridiculously overpowered move. It's not as overpowered as Last Respects. I'll give it that. Imagine if Annihilate got Last Respects. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy good. It'd have been banned a lot sooner. But yeah, S rank is definitely where Annihilate goes. It's really, really bulky. Every time it takes damage from an offensive move, so Rocky Helmet, Stealth Rocks and stuff like that don't count. Has to be a move like, you know, Tackle or whatever. Its Rage Fist boosts by 50 base power. So it starts as 50. You get hit by a move which isn't going to do much damage, base 100. Get hit by another move which isn't doing much damage, or maybe you just switched in on a U-turn, 50 base power more damage. Rage Fist just becomes so spammable, and it gets that coverage in close combat which deals with the normal and dark type Pokemon which are resisting your ghost type stab. Gets Bulk Up, gets recovery with Drain Punch, gets Resto Chesto, all that stuff. Really good Pokemon, really hard to deal with. Definitely love it. The last two Pokemon on the tier list are Koraidon and Miraidon, both of which respectively go in the S tier. They are both really good. They've both got 135 offensive stats and 135 speed, depending on the one you want. So 155 base attack on Koraidon, 135 base special defense on Miraidon. Decently bulky in their own right, decent amount of HP, really good moves. Koraidon is not as good as Miraidon. Miraidon is the best Pokemon in Ubers right now, easily. Koraidon's kind of up there in the top 10, I'd say, in my opinion. So yeah, that's where we are with this. Let me know if there's any of these little guys that, you know what, let's just do this. Crocalor, A tier. In the lower tiers, Eviolite Crocalor is amazing. Pretty much guaranteed to wall something on their team. Crocalor is amazing. Got to throw it in there because it's just really cool. Been using Octobax in the PU tier with its Dragon Dance set. Pretty cool, pretty awesome to be fair with Eviolite. Obviously that Thermal Exchange is a really cool ability to have. It's a really cool Pokemon in the PU tier, to be honest with you. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. And Toedscool is in the C tier because Eviolite Toedscool is one of my favorite rapid spinners in the PU tier right now. Mainly because the only other rapid spinner is Delibird. There's no rapid spinners, so you kind of have to make do. I've actually seen people use Quaxwell in PU, which didn't really work out very well for them, but they got a rapid spin off, so it kind of worked out for them in the end. And it gets Moxie as well, which is pretty cool. It doesn't get Aqua Step, unfortunately. What does it? Does it get Aqua Step? I don't think it does. I think it gets Liquidation. Other than that, I can't think of any others on here that's put in the finest of work, particularly. So, yeah, pretty much that's the tier list. So yeah, that's my tier list. Let me know what you think. I'm sure a lot of you are going to have different opinions to me. Please don't be an arsehole in the comments, even though I know you probably will be. Not everyone, obviously, but you know who you are. You know who you are. You're tempted right now, aren't you? You want to get on that keyboard and start typing away, don't you? You little keyboard warrior. That's right, get on there. Get on there. You know, boost my engagement on my videos. See how I can. I'm joking. I'm not bothered. Comment whatever you want. I don't really mind. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, of course, leave a like, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. And with that being said, I'll see you all in a bit.